I can actually see people backstage shaking their heads, wondering what in the world I am doing. But just so you know, I am playing with my favorite goat. I didn't get to play with the goat last time because I got distracted. But hello, creepies and crawlies, and welcome, welcome, welcome. We have an amazing show for you, and we are excited to have a really cool guest on with us today. And first, let's bring in my lovely co host, Lauren and Magda.
Hello.
Hello.
You had to have been talking about me because I'm sitting here and I'm like playing on my phone. I'm backstage. No one can see me. La la. And then you pop up and you go. Bah! My head just went. "Ugh."
I bear with me just 1 second. I don't know if Joey the Roadie is seeing this, but it looks like we're having some connection issues with Facebook at the moment. So those are our friends who are normally joining us on Facebook. If you are not able to see us, my apologies, but I don't know how to fix this. So we're just going to keep on rolling and hope
Go
for the
gadget
best.
Joey.
Go,
I
go,
don't know.
Gadget Joey.
You don't know either.
So what's going on? What has everybody been doing this last 3-4 weeks now? We've had a long break.
It's been a while.
It's been a big break. There was like the extra week.
Yep.
And then I don't know. So I guess 3 weeks. It's been 3.
Mhm.
Magda, you are so distracting, my dear. Just
There.
um
There we go.
what was
That's
I
better.
saying? We got a dog. There we go. We got a
Well-
dog. That's about it.
I've just been busy. It's been the sort of year where it feels like I can't take a breath. I take a moment, I stop, and then I look around and think, oh no, I need to keep going. So that's sort of what it's been like. It's just been on and on and on. I've done a bit of travel, I've done a bit of sewing, gaming when I had a moment, and school. So, just I was away. I was away. Most often that's the best description was I was away. But
Sometimes that's a great description, and sometimes it's just good to be away. Because
Mm.
I think most of the time we just end up with so much going on that we don't get a break from anything.
Geek Gumshoe says Magda coming in befuddling everyone.
Speaking of, before we get too befuddled, we have a disclaimer.
Yeah.
That we probably
Aye. So,
aye.
warning. This
Mhm.
show may contain strong language or disturbing topics, which may be unsuitable for children, and unusual humour, which may be unsuitable for adults. Assume that we will get off topic, but in the best
Because
sort of way.
that's pretty much a given with us. Anytime that we start talking about something, we sidebar, we spider web, we get excited about other things, and then it goes to chaos, and then we have to rein everything back in.
Yeah.
Lauren,
We're the human equivalent of squirrel.
fair. So, I have to ask because did your daughter go to the prom and everything this weekend?
Yeah.
Where were the pictures?
Prom. Sorry. I took them and we sent them to her other mother in case she wanted. I always try if it's like a big event like that. I don't like to be the one to post when she has, another mom and all of that. So I sent her the photos for her to post and be the one to share it and all of that. So I don't ever want to like rain on the parade and be like, I get it first. So I try and sit back on those kind of things.
Oh, you're such a good co-parent. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay,
I actually have a prom thing coming up for my eldest as well. He'll be going to prom with his oldest friend the first week of May. So that'll be fun.
Is he in that age bracket?
He is. He's a sophomore, but his best friend is a junior. So
fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun. I went sophomore, junior, and senior year as well.
I sort of missed that, but I was other places.
So funny story. I went my senior year only. We were in the Peabody, which is the big fancy hotel in our area, which all of us know. And I didn't stay for the entire prom, and then told my mom that I was God, I hope she doesn't watch this because she'll still yell at me over this one. Told my mother that I was going to stay with a friend, and she and I went to Little Rock to see a band that we wanted to see.
Nice.
The weekend in Little Rock.
Naughty.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
best prom ever. So we
We have a topic.
we have a and we have an amazing guest. Our guest this evening, Joey, if you want to go ahead and bring him in, is named Paul Riddell, and he is here to join us and talk about this wonderful subject of basically Gothic gardening. Specifically, your specialty is carnivorous plants. Is that correct?
Mm.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I originally started out as a pro writer, came to my senses, quit writing in 2002. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the author Jeff Vandermeer, author of Annihilation, that's the Dead Astronauts and Born.
Yes.
He convinced me to move to Tallahassee. He's been a friend since the 90s. And I got a job offer, allowed me to go to Tallahassee, Florida. The job didn't last very long, but I ended up getting hooked on the carnivorous plants that were native to the area. There are more indigenous carnivorous plants, a variety in the Tallahassee area than anywhere else on the planet. So the job fell through, but I ended up getting this love. And so I ended up, first just generally proselytizing about carnivorous plants, started selling them at shows and events, had a gallery for 7.5 years, just recently had to shut that down. And now I'm working on a whole new project that, well, ends up involving the plants again.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Lovely.
Okay, so I want to start off by asking, I know a lot of people always say, save the new project for last. What is it that you are doing that is going to involve these plants again? Because that doesn't seem like it would be an easy transition to find something else to do.
It's, well, actually, this is something that I've been wanting to do for a while. I'm not going to say anything more because part of it is going to be a surprise. Most of it is just quite honestly a matter of that I want to go ahead and make certain it's done before I go ahead and say anything about it. But it is going to be really interesting, and I'm making major inroads on it right now. So I'd say everyone's absolutely going to love it.
Cool.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. You know, this is really I am not a gardener. I am not even allowed near plants. Every time I am given a plant, it's like I do everything that I'm supposed to do, and I still I'm good with animals. I'm bad with plants. I want to be
Same.
good with plants.
Okay.
I want to be good with plants. So you are basically going to be shedding a lot of insight. And I know that carnivorous plants are a very special breed, but so first, let's talk a little bit about your role with the gallery. And if you don't mind, if you would pronounce the name of the gallery, I know it's the
Texas Triffid Ranch.
Thank you.
Triffid Ranch. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I
Yeah.
love
You're
it.
familiar with the reference, aren't you?
Oh,
Yes.
Triffids.
Rocking
Yeah.
for a picture.
Just wanted to check. It's okay. No, I get a lot of people that when they would hear the name, they just look at me like a dog being shown a card trick. So I just wanted to go ahead and make sure.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No, we did get the reference. However, we always like, because anytime you have something of that nature, people are going to pronounce it different. And I wanted to make sure that we were saying it the same way you did, although I don't know that we're going to say it that often because we're going to let you talk. So tell us a little bit about your time at the Texas Triffid Ranch.
Well, originally it started out just again as a traveling event where I would show up to conventions and events, particularly Texas Frightmare Weekend. That is a show that I have to admit I know. I truly miss being a vendor out at Frightmare because everybody out there was so cool, so interesting. I've loved the staff for years. I still go ahead and bring donuts for the staff every Sunday, even though I'm no longer doing this. I was doing that as a vendor for years because they bust their butts for a week before the show, and then Sunday they're all running on fumes. All they need is a donut. So I would go ahead and pick up like 7-8 dozen of them to make certain everybody got their fill.
That's
and so
amazing.
I'm still going ahead and doing that. To go ahead and make certain that they're all taken care of.
That's amazing. And that's a very well ran convention. I've been to a lot of
yes.
conventions. I've been to a lot of really bad conventions. So that one is one of the really well put together ones. Like you could tell there was a map and you could tell where you were supposed to go and things were running on the time it was supposed to be ran. And I was very impressed.
Oh yeah, no, the crew at Frightmare, starting from Lloyd and Sue Cryer, who run it all the way down. really make a point of they want to go ahead and have a professional experience. They want to make certain that if this is your first show, this is going to be one that knocks your socks off. If you've been going to conventions for years, you're going to come in and go, wow, this is how a convention should be run. And let's see, if there was any issue whatsoever with getting ready for a show at Frightmare, it was always my fault. Because without fail, there was always something that happened at my end. And they were always incredibly gracious about, oh, geez, okay, yeah, Paul's late again. It even got down to the point of I was coming in for one show and my truck literally got hit by lightning.
What?
I mean, I'm just coming. This was when it was being held at DFW Airport. Massive storm coming through. And as I'm coming in, all of a sudden, kaboom. And it was a matter of realizing, yeah, I got struck by lightning. So what did all the security call me all weekend? They called me Sparky.
Oh my God, that is hilarious. I love that so much.
If that is not some sort of
I was itching on that. Why are you calling me Sparky? But at the same time, I made certain that everybody in security got extra donuts.
Okay, so
that's clever.
I have questions. When you were on your way, did you have plants like in the vehicle with you? Your carnivorous plant? Okay, so how did you not get some sort of supervillain powers with that?
Somebody tell me
I
this.
don't know. I don't know. I'd just be happy with a Sinestro core ring, you know?
Nice.
I mean, come on. Nice. I got the hair. I got the boots. Just go ahead and let me go Guy Gardner, okay?
And you have a villain name now. You're Sparky.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. Oh my gosh.
That's the best story I've heard in a long time.
No. You want to hear good stories. Good friends.
Hi.
I've had all sorts of great interactions with the guests and with the attendees out there. Like Lance Hendrickson was guest of honor at the last show that I did out there. And it was a matter of, okay, for the first time ever, I was able to get out to the show early and get set up. And then Mr. Hendrickson comes over and starts asking questions about the plants. And I'm not going to tell him, I'm sorry, piss off. I need to go ahead and take care of this. I wanted to answer all of his questions, but at the same time, I'm dancing like a little kid who's got to go to the bathroom going, I really have to move my truck out of the dock because they're going to go ahead and tow it away otherwise. Do you mind? And not only did he not mind, but he came by later. But probably, I had George Romero come by and ask interesting questions about the plants, and Sherilyn Fenn loved the plants there, the one that she was out as a guest. But the best one, the absolute best one, was Mark Ralston. He's best known for his main role as playing Drake in the movie Aliens, but he's also a great voice actor. He plays psychos and grunts really well, but what it turns out is he is a serious plant junkie.
Really?
And I'm coming in. This was a show that was so busy that every day I'm having to rush back to my gallery to go ahead and get more plants because I'm selling them out as fast as I'm getting them. So Sunday, I come in. I've got an entire big cart full of North American pitcher plants. I'll show those in a minute. Okay. And all of a sudden, I hear this yell, wow, North American pitcher plants, Sarracenia. And it turns out it's Mr. Ralston. He's coming through, taking a look at all of the dealers before we officially open. And he comes in and he pumps me for information. Turns out he's familiar with some of the plants, but there were many others I didn't have. And honestly, if his handlers hadn't had to haul him away after an hour, he would still be in the basement of the DFW hotel talking about plants.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, I know. Like I said, I could have sat back and talked with him for days about this.
I love it when nerdoms crash like that. When someone walks up and they're just like, is that? And then this like hyper specific information comes out and both the people like the eyes lit up and they're like, you're like me.
Oh, I know. That's another one of the reasons why I love Frighteners, because, okay, you have a lot of kids out there and you figure, okay, horror convention kids, not a good idea. No, the fact is Frightener really makes a point of being kid friendly. So there's always stuff for kids to do. And some of them honestly ask some of the best questions that I've ever been asked. Ones where I have to tell them, okay, I'll tell you what, when you grow up and you figure this one, you let me know, because honestly, nobody knows yet. But you could be the one to actually go ahead and settle this.
Oh, that's the greatest way to answer a question if you don't know the answer. Exactly.
And it's a matter of pointing out nobody knows the answer yet, but you could be the one to actually go ahead and figure it out.
That's really exciting to kids, because when you're a kid and you want to grow up and they're like something interests you and you find out all this information, it feels like everything is already so known about everything. And like you want to be that person to like discover something, like I found this, I don't know, mummy or this ancient ruins.
Yep.
And so giving them something, they're like, no, you could be the person to do.
Yep.
That's amazing.
That and the fact of that most kids are afraid to ask questions at first because they're afraid, oh, I'm going to ask a dumb question. I'm going, no, especially with carnivores, there's not even anything remotely approximate a dumb question, unless you're deliberately trying to be dumb. Like, okay, well, can I feed other kids to the plants, for instance? Okay, that's a dumb question. But asking other questions about
It depends.
I can point out you are asking the same questions that Charles Darwin was asking about these plants.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
The first big book on them, Charles Darwin obviously ended up writing a lot of books on a lot of subjects. He was fascinated by orchids. He was fascinated by worms, but he did one whole book, Insectivorous Plants, that was at that time was one of the best studies of what we now call carnivorous plants ever done. And he ended up with what limited materials and what limited tools he had, managed to go ahead and make some fascinating insights, including asking questions that only got answered a couple of years ago. And
wow.
And so he went through, and it was a matter that it had been suspected that many of these plants had the ability to digest animal prey, but he was able to go ahead and confirm it with experiments that, again, were actually very elaborate. He and his son spent quite a bit of time working out how many of these plants worked out. And we're able to go ahead and confirm that, yes, not only are they capturing insects, but they are actually digesting them.
That is
this
amazing.
was before DNA analysis. This was before radioisotope theory. This was before that's the MRIs, before anything was able to go and confirm this. He was literally 150 years ahead of everybody else with asking questions that, okay, again, only within the last couple of years we've had the technology to be able to figure out.
That's amazing. Like, okay, so what was some of the things that they just figured out? Like, can you give an example of like one of the questions he was like, oh, I would love to know this thing, and like they have recently figured out?
Okay, the biggest one is how Venus flytraps work. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. I've got a couple of books over here to sit back and discuss carnivores.
Okay.
For the audience, this is not necessarily a plug, although many of these were written by friends. I recommend them very highly.
Please plug them.
The book, The Savage Garden, here is probably the best beginner guide you could come across. It's written by Peter D'Amato, who started California Carnivores. It's a big plant nursery in Sebastopol, California, just north of San Francisco. And Mr. D'Amato is pretty much responsible for so many of the people in the business now getting interested. This book came out 25 years ago and just floored everybody of, finally, I have answers for this. And especially it came out just as the internet's taking off. So all of a sudden you have people from all over the planet getting, by the way, have you seen this book yet? But by way of example, he's got this book goes through a lot of details on a lot of variety in plants, in carnivorous plants, as well as lots of really good pictures and really good guides for how to care for them. But to bring up an example here in this book, okay, here's a typical picture of a Venus flytrap. And most people only know Venus flytraps can go ahead and close up. What they don't know is the mechanism behind this. Now, first things first, I want to go ahead and emphasize that for everybody who, they love going in and setting off the fly traps at Home Depot or in a grocery store, please don't do that. All of the carnivorous plants aren't eating for energy. They're eating to get just enough extra nitrogen and phosphorus to grow in places where other plants can't. And so their traps are also their leaves. And so in the case of Venus flytraps, the traps have to stay open most of the time. If they catch one bug a month, that is more than enough. But the deal is, otherwise, these are their photosynthetic surfaces. And every time one of these gets set off, whether it catches a bug or not, it takes just a little bit more energy to open back up again than what it would get off of photosynthesizing in the first place. So as I love to tell kids here, it's like if you keep setting them off with your finger all the time, every time they open up, it's like holding you face down in a bathtub for an hour and then wondering why you don't feel like dancing. Because you're actually you're suffocating the plant. You're going through all of its reserves, and they will eventually die because of that.
Aw.
Yeah, so
Okay, I
now
will
you
never
know.
poke one again. I am so sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, on one point, no, I will say that there's another group that you can sit back and poke all day long and won't hurt them at all. And these are actually even more fascinating. Fly traps
Oh.
are fun, but they're kind of a one-trick pony. But as far as this new plan is concerned, that's actually tied to this too. The new study that came out is, okay, what had been well known since Charles Darwin's day is that the traps, each lobe on the trap has 3 little hairs in the center. They're in an equilateral triangle. And what has been known for a century now, at least, is that this is a plant technically that can count. That either 2 hairs have to be started off at the same time or any 2 hairs within 10 seconds. After that 10 seconds are up, the plant resets. What was only recently learned is because those hairs actually produce an electrical charge. And you need enough of a charge off of 2 of those hairs being stimulated to go ahead and cause the plant to go through. Electrical charge runs through the leaf and sets off special cells at the base of the trap. That's what causes it to close. And here's where it gets even more fun, is that it closes most of the way. Sort of like going and closing a purse, but not latching it shut.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you happen to be turned into the size of a bug and you get caught in a Venus flytrap, it closes on you like that. The best thing you can do is just go ahead and hold still. In the space of about maybe 5 or 6 hours, if the trap doesn't pick up any more signals off of its hairs, it'll gradually open up again because it figures, okay, it accidentally got set up and there's no point in trying to digest nothing that's there. Mm-hmm. However, if most bugs obviously aren't that self-aware, so they'll go ahead and they'll keep running back and forth, hitting those hairs, and that causes the trap to seal shut and start releasing digestive enzymes. And over about the next 3 to 5 days, it'll go ahead and break down, and then gradually the trap will open up, and all that'll be left are the indigestible portions, the shell, the innards, just whatever the plant wasn't able to digest. And they actually use that as bait to attract other prey. Things like jumping spiders and carpenter ants. They'll see, oh boy, look, easy meal, and they get caught themselves.
And so then they get a bigger prey than the one that they had just caught. That's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, the finding out how this works is that, okay, with animals, there's a concept that's actually relatively new of the understanding of what are called calcium channels. And these allow an electrical charge to go across, in animals, it allows an electrical charge to go across nerve cells, from nerve cell to nerve cell. And they're very hard to study. It was only been within about the last 10 years that it's been possible to study calcium channels, but it's opened up all sorts of possibilities. For instance, on anesthesia, that if we could figure out how to go ahead and shut off the calcium channels, you can stop pain signals right then. And that could be a really big deal in medicine if we have a better idea as to how anesthetics work.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Now, the deal is that there are some plants that have calcium channels. They don't have nerves. You can go ahead and take a leaf apart on a Venus flytrap. You will never find anything approximating a nerve. But you do have calcium channels that allow that electrical signal to go from the hairs to the cells at the base of the trap and cause those to go off. And that's news that's only been discovered about 3 years ago.
Oh, that's awesome.
One of the bits that Charles Darwin discovered that was, again, it was a mystery until 3 years ago, was by the discovery of the calcium channels, is that you could go ahead and keep a fly trap from going, you could get a fly trap to go off by hitting with electrical charge. That part was understood. But you could also anesthetize the traps with ether. You would actually apply ether on it, and the trap simply would not respond. You could sit back and jiggle the hairs all you wanted, and they simply would not close up. And as it turns out, ether directly affects the calcium channels, preventing signals from going through. Again, this is a matter of Darwin was writing about this in the 1870s, and it took almost 150 years to be able to get the knowledge to find out, okay, why does ether work on Venus flytraps? It'll also work on other plants that have moving parts, like, praying mimosas, the ones that will actually go ahead and close up their leaves. Mm-hmm. Same situation. They're running off the calcium channels. And then probably one of the weirdest little carnivorous plants, technically it's what's called a proto-carnivorous plant. This is a book on trigger plants. This is a genus that is only found in Australia. There are about 80 species of them. And the interesting part on their leaves is that on their flowers is that they're only carnivorous when they bloom, by the way. They have sticky hairs all over their flower scapes that capture insects. But
Okay.
the real trick is taking a look at the blooms here. You see, you've got 2 big petals, 2 small petals, and then up here on the top is a column. It looks a little bit like the hammer in a gun, and it works about the same way. When an insect flies onto that flower to go ahead and get nectar, that column whips forward and hits it with pollen in one particular spot, and then gradually will cock back up and wait another time. And they can be set off about 5 or 6 times. After about the 5th or 6th time, they lock forward permanently. There is no force on earth that will go ahead and get that to go back again. Same way if you set up a fly trap more than about 5 or 6 times, because it's a growth that goes ahead and causes them, a growth process that causes them to open up again. That's after about 5 or 6 times, they lock forward permanently. They are purely a photosynthetic leaf. There is no force on earth that could go ahead and get that trap to close again. Well, with the trigger plants, that column locks forward, and so now that male flower has now become a female flower. So that a bug has been paired on a particular spot on the female bloom or on the male bloom, flies to a female bloom, and the pollen is exactly the right place to be received. There are some areas where if you have multiple species of trigger plant in the area, you can actually see little lines of pollen along the back of bugs that have been visiting the flowers from different species, because each species has a slightly different length of column.
Wow.
And they work off at the same process as a fly trap. That you have an electrical signal that comes off of the bloom, off of the hairs on the surface when the bug lands on it, and that's what ultimately sets off the column. But there has to be enough interaction for them to actually go through. But in the process, they're even faster than a fly trap. There's one species that I love growing, Stylidium debile. It's a little itty bitty one. They've got little hot pink blooms about maybe a millimeter or 2 across. And their columns work so fast the human eye can't follow it. I actually knew somebody that I was saying that demonstrating to it. She was holding the pot. She freaked out so badly because she saw the column here. She saw the column here. Didn't see the interstitial swing. She freaked out so badly she dropped the pot.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh.
But the good news is it's okay. It's okay. The nice thing is trigger plants are tough little monsters.
Okay.
Yeah, they're very, very tough. So that wasn't a problem. And in fact, I've got a batch of debiles that started from a couple that were given to me by a dear friend. He's now a professor at the University of Indiana. Ryan gave me these here back almost 20 years ago, and they just keep coming back. We had the big freeze in Texas in 2021, solid week of 0-degree temperatures. Yes. I lost a lot of plants in that freeze. I didn't lose my trigger plants. They came back. 115 degrees outside this last summer? No, they come back. And it's a matter of, I honestly think you could raise these things in a lead smelter and they would just go ahead and keep going. So just for everybody who's listening, everybody who goes on about, okay, I have such problems with keeping Venus flytraps alive. Honestly, flytraps are probably the toughest carnivorous plant you can grow. They require a lot of direct sun, 6 to 8 hours of direct sun, not windowsill sun. Unless you're raising cannabis, you're not going to have grow lights strong enough to be able to keep a fly trap happy. And they also go dormant over the winter. You've got to leave them outside, let them cool off, let them die back. If they don't get that, they will eventually wear out and die. If you try to keep them inside under lights all the time, you'll get them to live for a year. They might live 2 years, but eventually they will run out of energy. They spend the entire winter storing up energy, storing up starch in a bulb in preparation for the summer. It's like you hyperventilating before you take a deep dive. You're trying to get enough energy to be able to get through the summer.
I do have a question about that though. Is there a plant that you suggest that you can keep inside? Is there a carnivorous plant that you can keep as like a house plant?
Oh yes. There are a lot of really good ones. That's it.
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
He got very happy about that.
Okay. Among other things, just to let you know, there are carnivorous plants on every continent but Antarctica. And Antarctica did have them before it froze over, based on core samplings, finding pollen samples in older rocks. You had, and the fact of that there are a couple of different species that have cousins that live in Australia and at the tip of South America. They were using Antarctica as a land bridge. So in fact, one of those is, I'll go ahead and pull up a picture here right away. This is Cephalatus, the Albany pitcher plant. It's only native to one small area in Albany in far southern West Australia. This is probably one of the weirdest carnivorous plants in the world because it has no close relations. The closest relations it has today include the Rose family. Apples and roses are cousins, and all that means is their ancestors and the ancestors of apples and roses separated about 90 million years ago. So back, honestly, right about the time flowering plants first took off. Now, the Albany pitcher plant, it has no other relations anywhere else on the planet. And I keep telling people, if I had access to cheap and easy time travel, little side bit, if any of you watch Doctor Who, the character of Missy is a dead ringer for my late grandmother. I mean, as close as I'm ever get to having my grandmother back. And if my grandmother showed up at the front door and tossed me a TARDIS key and said, "Don't do anything I wouldn't do," then I wouldn't be bothering going back. I wouldn't be going back to see the Battle of Agincourt. I wouldn't be bothering to go back to see Woodstock. I'd be going back to Antarctica 30 million years ago with a camera, because everything I would be taking a picture of would be brand new to science. There is almost nothing known from a period about maybe 5 million years after the dinosaurs became extinct until about 5 million years ago, because all of the rocks are underneath about a mile of ice. And short of Antarctica thawing out, you're never going to be able to go ahead and access these. So time travel might be the easiest way. But I'd be out looking for cephalotus here, looking for other species, because there probably were other species living in Antarctica before it froze.
Wow, that's a really pretty plant.
Can I just comment how beautiful this plant is? And I don't know if this is something that you see with all carnivorous plants, but everyone that I have ever viewed, they're absolutely just the most beautiful plant I have ever seen.
Yes,
they are.
Yeah. In fact, I'll go ahead. I will show you one. I've got one here on the side. Let me go ahead and drag this puppy out. Okay, this is a little scraggly at the moment, but that's because it's just waking up. This is a North American pitcher plant. To let you know, there are 4 different groups that are commonly called pitcher plants. You have your North American varieties, which range along the Gulf Coast. The majority of them are found Alabama, Georgia, Florida Panhandle, and Mississippi. However, there's one species that runs all the way up the East Coast into Canada. In fact, it's the purple pitcher plant. In fact, it is the flower emblem, the Canadian equivalent of a state flower for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. So, so it's a matter of that, any Canadian listeners here, trust me, you've got carnivorous plants out there too. I've seen carnivorous plants in the middle of Alberta, for God's sake. So they're everywhere if you know where to look. Anyway, this one here is a hybrid of a couple of different species, but this gives you a basic idea on how these operate. And in this case, it's coming out of winter dormancy. They go into dormancy just like a Venus flytrap. So you have all of these older leaves that are gradually dying off. They will stay green until these new traps start coming in. And usually what will happen is that they will bloom first, then go ahead and produce traps. And the reason why is that their pollinators and their prey usually tend to be the same insects. And so in this case, they'll produce these beautiful droopy blooms out here with different colored, petals on them, depending on the species. Yeah, they're everywhere, for God's sake. Yeah, you aren't kidding.
Thanks, Eli.
Yeah, but anyway, the whole deal, yeah, exactly. Now, what's even more fun is this is a hybrid of Sarracenia leucophilia, which produce big. They honestly look like somebody has glued lace on top of the trap.
So pretty.
And what was interesting with me is I was already starting to do some research on this, because many of these the main attractant for these is that they secrete nectar that grows it comes out along the lip of the trap and along the underside of the lid. And also all of these fluoresce very strongly under ultraviolet. And what I was noticing is with those leucophilias, they glow under full moonlight. And they were also capturing things. They were capturing more nocturnal insects, like moths and click beetles, as opposed to ones like this one here, which are mostly catching daytime insects. They catch a lot of wasps, they catch a lot of flies, they catch bees from time to time. And the trick here is that they draw in based on the ultraviolet fluorescence and the nectar. Insects will come on in and they'll lick off all of the nectar that's on here. But here in the throat, there is more nectar being secreted in there. So they'll hang on. You can actually watch, say, a housefly hanging on with 1 foot, trying to get down just a little bit further to go ahead and get some of this. And some of these will also secrete a drug called conine in that nectar that will stun them. And so they get overly drunk on it. And all they need is, well, as you can see, these are wiggling along nicely here just with my moving them. In the wind, they'll go ahead and move all the time. That can be enough to dislodge the insect. Now, from here down to here, it's all slick and waxy, and it's shaped in a way that insects that try to fly out actually get sucked down further. It actually produces a vacuum that
Quicksand.
draws them down. And now here's where it gets creepy. Is from about here all the way on down. The whole inside is lined with very strong, very sharp hairs pointing downward. If I were to split this in half and run my finger up the wrong way, it'd be like running my finger up a bandsaw blade.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Exactly. Yeah, and so the deal is that the insect that gets at that point has one of two choices. They either keep going down or they try to come up and get torn to pieces. When they run out of down, the plant draws a fluid in the column there, drowns the insect and digests it, and then absorbs the nitrogen and the phosphorus for being able to grow. These are native to sphagnum bogs all along the Gulf of Mexico. So
is that your is that your like favorite plants, or do you have like a specifically favorite one?
Do you have a week? I got plenty. I'm going to show you a great example of an indoor plant here in a second. This one's got this one has a personal story. So, but anyway, like I said, this gives you an idea. These North American pitcher plants are best as outdoor plants because they really do require full sun, and they end up needing. They end up. Excuse me if I can talk here today. They need a winter dormancy. Now, if you live someplace where it gets well below freezing, you might want to go ahead and at least cut them back a bit and cover them with a blanket at first. If it gets really cold, like you're up in Michigan or Minnesota, go ahead and you can actually go ahead and bring them inside, just making certain that they stay cold. Like say, put them in your garage.
I did have a question. You're talking about the pitcher plants, so those basically drown the insect.
Yes.
And then you have the Venus flytraps, which trap it.
Yep.
But I also know there's things like sundews as well.
Yep.
And they trap it with the stickiness. Is that the three standard ways that the carnivorous plants go about trapping, or are there other ways as well?
There are more ways. And that's where this is where the personal history comes in. Okay. Now, this right here may not look like a whole lot at first. But what you have here is an example of one of the biggest groups of carnivorous plants worldwide. This is a bladderwort. Bladderworts are found every continent but Antarctica, and there are new species being discovered all the time because and here's the fun part about them is that this one here, for instance, is actually throwing off flowerscapes here. You see these wonderful little lavender blooms? Many of them will go ahead and produce truly spectacular blooms. And this one is just starting out to bloom. When it finally grows, it'll produce these big purplish blooms on here. This is Utricularia calcifida. Now, it has a whole variety of different variants, what are called cultivars, where they're specifically bred. A little bit with cultivars is that, if you go into a garden center, you see all of the roses lined up, and you see all the weird names that are on them. Those are cultivars that were specifically named. They were described with rose organizations. And once you've named that plant, that one is going to have that one forever. If you ever read the graphic novel V for Vendetta, where they're referring to the rose, the Violet Carson, that was actually the Violet Carson was actually named after an English TV comedian, and it's just the idea was that this rare rose, and they're beautiful roses. They look like they were sculpted out of raspberry sherbet. Right now, there's only one breeder who's doing Violet Carsons in South Africa. I would love to go ahead and see the Violet Carsons come back. But in this case, with carnivores, you end up with a lot of them that get rather bizarre cultivar names. There are a lot of different Venus flytrap cultivars, different shapes on the traps, different styles. There's one called Werewolf. There's one called Pom Pom. With the bladderworts, thanks to Dr. Barry Rice, who's one of the world's leading authorities on carnivorous plants. In fact, I've got a book here that I'll show here in a minute that he wrote. He had a whole load of cultivars that were named after H.P. Lovecraft characters. Lovecraft was a cousin on my mom's side of the family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so what I have here right now is Utricularia calcifida yogsata. There is a Lavinia Watley that produces big white blooms. There is a Cthulhu that produces particularly big greenish blooms. There's one personal connection is the Asnath Waite. That's my great-grandmother's name. I have a sneaking suspicion Lovecraft met her and turned her into a villain in his story Thing on the Doorstep.
That's
Which, if you knew
amazing.
my family, would be so in character.
Oh my god! I do have to say, whenever you held that up, you are so intelligent because you held that up and you're like, oh, this thing here, and my brain was like, that is a jar.
Well, anyway, the deal with bladderworts, what makes them fun is that you can't see them catching prey. There are 3 different main groupings of them, and they're based on this is a terrestrial variety. They grow in boggy soil, usually as soggy as you can get it. There are ones that are purely aquatic, where they go ahead and they free float in water. And then there's one group that is only found on the rocks underneath waterfalls, because they're dependent upon that constant flow of water. And all 3 of them have one thing in common. They have these little bladders that they produce along their stems. That, picture a tennis ball that has a slit cut into it and it's been squashed flat. The slit has sensory hairs on the top of it. And so so the deal is that when something bumps into those sensory hairs, that causes the bladder to open up and slurp up everything inside.
Okay.
There's a valve on the front that prevents anything from escaping, and then the plant gradually spits out the water inside and digests whatever it catches. Now, the deal with these terrestrial bladderworts is that you don't have to worry about feeding them, ever. They're feeding off of nematodes and other microscopic soil organisms. And there are literally millions in every handful of dirt that are in here. So all these need is light and rainwater. Well, pretty much with all carnivores, rainwater or distilled water only. Don't try using tap water. In a lot of areas, that it's too salty, it's too alkaline. It'll eventually burn the roots off. Here in Dallas, where I'm located, our water is just this side of crunchy. So I hear people all the time, they bought a fly trap, but it died. And the first question I'll ask is, what kind of water were you using? And they go, I was using tap water. Okay, that's your problem. Because tap water will kill. Dallas tap water could kill anything out here. It's so laden with salt. And so, especially for plants like this that cannot deal with that salt. I mean,
No,
we
don't drink Dallas tap water. Gotcha.
Well, drinking Dallas tap water is okay, but we have ways to get rid of that extra salt. And the plants don't have any way to do that. And so you can, honestly, the first carnivorous plant I ever had was a Venus flytrap I bought. I was a kid living in Chicago. We moved to the town of Flower Mound, which is a suburb northwest of Dallas. And the first time I watered that plant in Flower Mound, that plant was dead within an hour. It took me 23 years to find out what killed that flytrap. And so a lot of people will go ahead and buy fly traps and figure, oh, geez, I can't keep it alive. What they don't know is, again, they need the full sun. They need a winter dormancy. You can't use tap water on them.
Oh my God, I've been killing them all.
You definitely do not want to feed them hamburger. I don't care what the guides say on the side of the containers.
I'll never feed them hamburgers, so I'm one up on that.
Oh yeah, no. Quite honestly, most of them will go, oh yeah, you can even feed them hamburger. Well, number one, yeah, exactly. It's a
hot dog?
Well, yeah, technically you could. You don't want to though, because number one is that the plants don't have any way to be able to digest fats. They can digest proteins, yes, but it's bad enough that people, when they hear you can feed them hamburger, they throw in a big chunk. Like, okay, you're going to get half of a Whopper here, like it's going to be able to digest it. But worse is that they don't have a way to digest fat. And insects are generally very, very lean. Any fat that they have on them are in distinctive fat bodies in their that's the inside of their exoskeleton. And so those, when the plant digests them, those fat bodies get left behind. However, if it's just mixed in the way it is with hamburger, the plant has 3 to 5 days to digest whatever it is it caught before it is before it starts to rot. And if it starts to rot, usually it'll kill just the trap. Sometimes that rot can spread to the crown of the plant and kill the whole plant. But generally, you go and you throw in a big chunk of hamburger, and it has no way to be able to digest that fat. That fat will rot, and that's what causes the trap to die.
See, someone's going to hear you say that and be like, oh, okay, they don't like fat. So I got you this tofurkey vegan sausage.
Actually, you want to know what might be even better? And you're going to laugh.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
There's a whole group of carnivorous plants that are actually dependent upon dung.
Dung?
And one of these...
That does not surprise me.
Oh, yeah. Well,
That's not fair. That's fun.
It's weirder than you realize. Okay, and again, pull out Peter Diamato's Savage Garden, because he's got all these great pictures for all of these. And it's a matter of like I told you, there are 4 different groups of plants that are generally referred to as pitcher plants. You have your North American pitcher plants, which are native to the Gulf Coast. You have your Asian pitcher plants, which are found all throughout the Indian Ocean. Predominantly, they're found on the islands of Borneo, Sulawesi, and Sarawak. That's where the overwhelming majority of them are found. But you have a couple of species in Madagascar. You have a couple of species, or 2 species now in Cambodia, 5 of them in Australia. And they've ended up adapting quite nicely under different circumstances. But the overwhelming majority of them are found in Borneo, Sulawesi, and Sarawak. And they produce some incredibly twisted traps. Then your third variety is a really weird one. They're Heliamphora. They're South American pitcher plants. They're only found on plateaus right at the border of Venezuela, Guyana, and Brazil, called tepuis. These can go up about a mile high. In fact, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's novel, The Lost World, was set on a tepui, because at the time they were discovered, it was a matter of that, in many cases, no human had ever been on the top of the tepuis. They are that hard to climb. Many of them were only explored by bringing in aircraft. And in fact, the world's tallest continuous waterfall, Angel Falls, was named after a Venezuelan navigator who a pilot. He and his navigator crashed on one of these tepuis. They had to put their plane back together again and literally shove it off the side to be able to fly away and escape. But because of those conditions up there, there's a whole group of pitcher plants that live up there, and they're cousins to the North American pitcher plants. But they have completely different structures to them. I could go on about those for days myself. And then the fourth one were those Australian pitcher plants that you just saw here earlier. Well, anyway, with the Asian pitcher plants, they get there. They have very interesting traps themselves. I'm trying to find a particularly good picture. Is that okay? By way of example, let me go ahead and get this so everyone can take a look at this.
Oh, that's very
pretty. They have big flat leaves that have a rib that run off of the tip, and off of that tip grow these pitchers.
What is that? Which one is that exactly?
This one here is specifically, this is a hybrid called Lady Pauline. But it's a matter of, this gives you an idea of the general structures. And what's interesting about it is that when they first start growing, pretty much all their lives, they'll go ahead and produce one particular type of trap along the ground. Those are called lower traps. And they're mostly to catch things like ants, roaches, termites, things like that. Well, once they reach a certain size, and let me see if I can go ahead and find an even better picture.
Can I just line my house with those?
Yeah, like this one up here is Nepenthes bicalcarata. And I was going to say is, trust me, I was thinking about Peter Jackson's King Kong as well. I love that movie. I love the thought that went into the natural history on it. And I would honestly love that. I would want to go out on Skull Island, knowing I would live there for probably a few hours before something ate me, to see what kind of carnivores were growing on Skull Island. Because there'd probably be some really cool ones.
You'd be the kind of person who'd be like, "Oh, Jurassic Park has opened," and you'd be like, "I'm going to go look at the plants."
Seriously, that has been a joke with a friend of mine. Here's a great example here. This is the shape on the picture right here. That all of the traps work in the same way. That pitcher grows up and then the lid pops off. I know a lot of people will go, okay, well, the bug climbs in, the lid closes up. No, they don't work. The lid is there as effectively to go ahead and keep it from filling full of water. It's a rain guard. And
it's an umbrella.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, just like the lids on North American pitcher plants. And in this case, the trap will go ahead. The lid secretes nectar on the underside and all along the throat, and it also fluoresces very strongly. You can actually come in with a. Sorry, I'm realizing I'm running out of battery space, but I'll figure out something here in a minute. Anyway, point of the matter is. Sorry.
Does the lid act? No. Does the lid keep it from, let's say, drowning? Is that kind of what the purpose is?
It more than anything else, it keeps it from filling full of water and washing out whatever prey that's in it. Because with the Nepenthes there, the bottom is filled with a combination of digestive fluid and a special polymer. It honestly feels a little bit like snot. It's that polymer acts like a wet blanket. So any insect that gets trapped inside there, it falls in, it gets caught in the fluid. It doesn't have hairs like the North American pitcher plant. It just has a very smooth area. It's covered with a special wax that will gum up the insect's foot pads as it's trying to climb out. And then the polymer will wear them out. They'll drown, they'll die, and the plant will digest them. And what's really interesting is that there are many of them that will start out carnivorous like this, and they will go ahead and capture insects. And then when they get a certain size, they start to vine. They can grow 30, 50 feet high up into the air, and they'll climb up the sides of trees, sometimes the sides of cliffs. And they will produce what are called upper traps. And those upper traps, 90% of the time, look nothing like the original. If you were to find them together separately, you'd think they belong to completely separate species. And you have a whole slew of them that you've got 4 species that their upper traps look like a little Barbie toilet. I mean, they're the same size. They look plasticky. And yeah, you can see Barbie deciding to stop and take a plastic dump right on the top. But that's actually how they work. They actually attract insects, or excuse me, in this case, they don't attract insects. They attract birds, rodents, and tree shoots. They throw off this really thick nectar on the other side. It's like apple butter. And they get caught in the glue in that. Or excuse me, I'm sorry, I take that back. It's been a day. I have to apologize.
No, you're entirely good.
You're amazing.
Then they crap inside of the pitcher, and the plant gets its nitrogen that way. One of the world's largest ones, Nepenthes raja, they produce pitchers the size of an American football. They work the same way. They also get tree shrews that go ahead and crap in them. In fact, they have been discovered with shrews and rodents caught in the trap. And it was thought, wow, these things are so aggressive, they're eating vertebrates. No, these were literally, they're using the toilet and they slip on the lid. And they fell inside and could not get out.
They fell in?
Yep, they fell in. Exactly.
Oh my gosh, you are so. I'm so sorry. I'm over here giggling because
we lost her at snot.
No. You lost me. Pull the picture back up. The one that we just had up. This is where you lost me. This picture came up and you're talking about how terrifying this thing is. And my brain goes, that is a danger penis.
Yes. Oh yeah, you're not the only one. There are actually some cultivars that are named John Holmes and Ron Jeremy. So just to let you know, yes. Because again, you can name them whatever you want when you get them. In fact, one of the ones that I was working on about the time that I shut down the gallery is that this is a real fun one. That Asian pitcher plants are separated by latitude and longitude. They're separated by altitude. You have lowland varieties.
I know that makes sense.
Love living on heat. They live down along sea level. And they're fine. Then you have the highland varieties, where in their case, they live way up in the mountains in these islands. And they are actually dependent upon cooler temperatures. They cannot handle temperatures above about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And because of the altitude, the temperatures drop down 50 Fahrenheit at night. So it actually gets kind of chilly up there. And so you've got this entire variety of fascinating pitcher plants that also go ahead and, that are also royal pains in the butt to raise because you effectively have to keep them refrigerated. And this is one of, sorry.
No, you're good. Finish what you're going. We only have 5 minutes left in the show. So once you,
you're right.
Well, that's where the punchline comes in, is I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. This is also from the Savage Garden. This is Nepenthes hamada over here. Now, its lower traps look like somebody glued bandsaw blade chunks on. This upper one has hooks. I've described it for years as it looks like a condom designed by Clive Barker. And the worst part is that the dream is going to develop a hamada cultivar that will be named Clive Barker.
And is this a condom from Pinhead? Is this what we're saying?
You know what that lunatic Riddell is doing? He's putting the name of Carnivorous plant after you.
I love it.
I don't know if it's Pinhead. Maybe the guy with the CDs in his head.
Yeah, okay, I would just absolutely love to go ahead and do this one of these days. But I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. We are absolutely loving this because
this is fantastic.
9 times out of 10, we have to lead the conversation, and you have been amazing and a wealth of information. But I do have a question.
Yes.
So let's say that you are somebody who is into gardening and into creating into plants in general. Would you recommend trying to maintain carnivorous plants?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, most of them are remarkably easy. You just have to know what it is the plants need. They
Okay.
need acidic soil. I recommend pure peat moss, and make certain this peat
Hmm.
moss does not have fertilizer on it. Fertilizer is lethal to carnivores. There's one variety you can actually use. I'm not going to go ahead and mention it right now because trust me, this stuff is expensive. But for the most part, standard salt-based fertilizers are lethal to carnivores. It'll just burn the roots right off. So a lot of times when you see peat moss for sale at Lowe's and Home Depot, where it's in little bags, it usually has added fertilizer. Check on that. Do not use that at all. But other than that, you give them peat, you give them rainwater, distilled water, you give them lots of light. That's all they really need. And most of them will thrive beyond your wildest
I
expectations.
want one now.
Lovely.
Like with the
want
blackboard
one.
you just saw here, you can raise that under a desk lamp.
I
You
want
get a
to.
desk lamp, you put 100-watt equivalent LED bulb. That's depending on if it's full spectrum or cool white, it's 13 to 15 watts. But it'll read the equivalent of a 100-watt incandescent bulb. Go for one of those. You put it in a desk lamp. You put the desk lamp, well, but bring up the pot here, is you go ahead and you put that desk lamp about maybe this far away from the container. Set on a timer, 12 hours on, 12 hours off. That's all you need. I've been selling these as office plants for years of figuring you don't have to worry about feeding them. You don't have to worry about fertilizing them. All they need is a light. So long as you've got a timer on your desk lamp, they will be ecstatic. And this one here started out from a little plug about the size of a dime. And it has already filled this. I'm actually going to have to thin this out and start giving more of these out to friends. Oh, absolutely.
Mail it.
And I'll tell you what, if you want me to come back on the show later, please let me know.
Yes!
I can go ahead and choose one for you.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yes.
Okay.
What is the plant that you have always wanted that exists like nowadays, but you've just like never been able to get your hands on?
There's one, Nepenthes edwardsiana. That's another one of the Highland varieties. In their case, they actually have what look like blades coming off of their pitcher. The problem is you pretty much have to keep those refrigerated because they cannot handle, the temperatures go above 85 degrees Fahrenheit, they start going to shock. 90 Fahrenheit, they start to cook. And so they're not for beginners. And yet all the time I would get hit up by people who want to go ahead and get an edwardsiana because, they wanted the biggest, baddest one. Now, the one that I was actually lucky to go ahead and do, and I'm going to leave off on this, this will be for the next one, is there's one species of Nepenthes that actually acts as a home for bats.
What?
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
and that one's going to take about a half hour to explain all the natural history because you are going to love this. There's one species where you have one of the smallest frogs in all of Asia that breed inside of the pitchers. The tadpoles spend their entire life cycle inside the pitcher and only emerge when they're fully grown.
I
But this
want
one here,
to cover
Nepenthes
this.
edwardsiana, actually has bats hiding in them. They actually produce a sonar echo that lets bats know that this is a safe place. And discovered just only a couple of years ago, mother bats teach their pups to watch for that sonar signal, knowing that this is a safe place. They're tiny bats about the size of my thumb joint. They get bullied out of other roosting sites by bigger, more aggressive bats. And so the plant gets nitrogen off of the bat guano that the bats deposit, while at the same time the bats hide inside the pitcher and they have a safe place. The plant has stopped producing digestive enzymes because it's working. So it's getting nitrogen not just off of the guano, but off of bat fur as the bats are grooming themselves all the time.
That's amazing.
Oh, it is. I guess even better, but I'm going to have to tell you that next time.
Yeah, I was about to say, we need a deep dive on this plant.
You aren't kidding.
Yeah.
And I was so excited because I think I just found the plant.
Oh,
Okay.
can we do a sneak peek?
That's what I'm trying to do.
Please.
Bear with me.
Okay. Well, we have 1 minute left while you're trying to pull it up. Where can people
It doesn't
find you
like
if they
it.
want to look you up online, if they want to investigate further into your plantness? Where do people go?
Well, in this case, I don't really have much of anything. I still have the website Texas Triffid Ranch up, so you can go ahead and see some of the older stuff that I was doing, especially a lot of the unique enclosures. That actually, some of the backstories on the enclosures are part of the new secret project. But just with the idea of producing backstories.
Oh, you froze.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I think
Oh, we're back. We're back.
No, we're back.
Sorry about that. I was going, wait a minute, you're cutting me off already. But no, with the secret project, it's a matter of I've actually been working toward a degree in museum design. And that actually ended up sparking this. And I ended up using a lot of that at the gallery. And that and the fact of that, okay, I was a friend of the author Harlan Ellison. And he used to love writing stories based on pieces of artwork. And my dream was to go ahead and come up with enclosures that had such great backstories to them. And he'd want to write stories about it. Well, at the time that I could go ahead and actually send him a portfolio of this is what I've been working on these days, I got the word that he died. So I figured, well, guess what? I got to go ahead and write the damn stories. So, but yeah, that will a lot of those stories are actually tying into what the secret project is about. So you'll just have to go through and check out the website and see what's on there.
Brilliant.
that is amazing. DL, were you able to?
No,
now
my computer's
I'm
not. I've been
frozen.
steadily here. I've been steadily trying to upload this, and it's just not being my friend. I'm so sorry.
I think it's freezing
trying.
all of us.
Oh, it's
all right.
okay. If you
probably
want me
me.
to come back on, I'd be glad to come back on.
We would love to
it.
have
I would
you.
love a deep dive on the baby bat plant. I want
yeah.
that one.
Oh,
And
I-
then I'm
like-
going to go ahead and introduce you to Butterworts.
How do we
I
not
haven't
have
even
like?
mentioned the angry ghost bunny bladderwort yet? That's one you're
What
really
angry ghost bunny black?
And it has a flower that actually looks like a little angry ghost bunny. It's got
Oh my God, I'm
eye
looking it up
spots.
right now.
It looks like it's frowning. It's
We
got
need all of
floppy ears
those.
coming off of the top, and it looks like an angry ghost bunny.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, no, we've definitely got to do a
Right.
part 2 of
Mm-mm.
this.
Yep.
This was
Why?
amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. We
Thank you for having me.
we are at the top of the hour. So DL, if you can find the pictures, post them in the comments after. so
I'm
people-
looking.
Thank you.
Y'all have no idea. I'm over here. And by the way, don't look up Angry Ghost Bunny because all you get are Angry Ghost Bunnies.
Yeah.
Hey
Yeah,
Paul,
you tricked
FYI,
Aria,
your
Sandra
screen
Stoney. With
your screen
Sandra
has gone
Stoney
out.
is with 2 eyes at the end. And trust me, they look like little angry ghost bunnies. I would not make this up. I love selling them. I love raising just to give them to people who liked rabbits because of the fact you've got a plant that has angry ghost bunnies on it.
Well, guys, I hate to do this. By the
Oh,
way,
sorry.
Paul, your camera has gone out right now. You are a completely black screen, but we can hear you. So thank you so much. We would love to have you back. This was
Oh,
so
please.
entertaining.
This
I feel
was
like
so
we,
good.
That was
I feel like we
fantastic.
just like scraped the
Love
top.
Yeah, now picture me doing this for 3 solid days of Texas Frightmare. That's what Frightmare was like.
Well,
Love
honestly,
it.
I will be at Texas Frightmare this year. So if you're coming by and bringing donuts, just send me a message and let us
Bring her
know.
a donut. She wants
I'll
a
tell you what,
donut.
I don't want a
Bring
donut.
donuts
I
out
don't want
just
a
for the
donut. I
three
just
of you.
want to
How does that sound?
do what?
I will specifically bring donuts out for you because there's a great place by my house that makes incredible donuts.
Aw,
I will bring them just for
lovely.
you. Just let me know where you are on Sunday morning and I will bring them to you.
I will be glad
Fantastic.
to. I would love to have a donut, but more importantly, I would love to meet and shake your hand and meet you in person. But
Yes.
we are officially at the top of the hour, and I hate to cut this off because
This
I feel like
was so good.
there was
Oh, thank you.
yeah,
I'm glad
brilliant.
everybody had fun.
Love
I
it.
really
we had a blast.
So
Cool.
much
I
fun.
was sitting. So we're very used, as Dale was saying, we're very used to people coming on and then
Right.
being like, "Hi," and then we have to be like, "Who are you?" And like we have to,
Yeah,
we have to
absolutely.
lead the conversation. You came in and you're like, "I've got this," and we are just like,
Love it.
"Whoa, all
I
right."
know, we were
Well, I'm glad to be of service. I really am.
so. With that said, I am going to say pleasant screams until next time.